What's up, everyone? Matt here with Down Once More, and it is time to talk about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4, Day 1. If this is your first recap with us, welcome. What I'm going to do is talk kind of my instant reactions, thoughts to the episode, what I'm feeling now, what kind of stood out to me. I'm not going to go a scene by scene recap. There will be spoilers for the episode, so if you haven't watched it, turn it off now. What I won't do is spoil future things from the games, at least not until the end of the episode. And if I do that, it'll be in time codes in the description, so check out there, and I'll give a warning before I go into any future spoilers that haven't already been revealed in the show. I encourage everyone to avoid spoilers. If you're new and you're just experiencing this story for the first time in the show, that's awesome. Glad you're along for this ride. The games are also fantastic. I encourage you to check those out, but maybe just wait till the season's over. And it sounds like the second game split into 2 seasons, so maybe wait until that season's over too. But be warned, let's get into the episode. So I love, first off, just seeing the title was fantastic to me. The game is broken out by like Seattle, day 1, day 2, day 3. And so us getting this episode just simply titled Day 1. And then when we first jumped to Ellie and Dina, getting the Seattle Day 1 tag, I thought that was fantastic. I thought it was an interesting choice, and I actually liked it opening up back in 2018 and getting some backstory on Isaac. I wasn't expecting to see a Josh Peck cameo in here as a Fedra soldier, a very dickish Fedra soldier, and just kind of seeing how they had lost their humanity a little bit, kind of dehumanizing the citizens. There's a line where when Josh's character is, I'm just going to call him Josh because I don't know what his actual Fedra soldier's character name is, telling the story. He's calling them voters, and a newer seeming greener Fedra agent asks him, why do you call them voters? And that's when we first see Jeffrey Wright's Isaac. So Jeffrey Wright voiced Isaac in the games, and so getting to kind of reprise his role here, but we're seeing a different take on him. We're seeing him as a Fedra sergeant, which is something we don't get in the games. We don't get much backstory on Isaac besides what's seen in maybe some scrawled notes that you find when you're discovering collectibles, and kind of what you overhear the WLF soldiers, people talk about him throughout the game, but we don't dive too much into his story in the game. And so getting to see kind of his backstory and where he was at with Fedra, he was a sergeant, and you can see he's a little bit jaded and he's kind of disgusted by Josh's story. Sounds so weird to say Josh, by how he's kind of dehumanizing him, and Josh is calling him voters. He's saying they started calling them voters to mock them because they took away any sort of rights that they had, these citizens, Fedra did. So they started calling them voters to mock them because they didn't have a say, they didn't have a vote. And so we're seeing how Isaac's kind of a turn was brought on by just being dissatisfied with the way things are. He meets up with, I believe is Alana Birch, plays Hannaran. Alana Ubach, not Birch. I don't know why I got Birch. I think of Ashley Birch from Mythic Quest. But Alana Ubach plays Hanrahan, and Isaac meets up with her. And she says, are you Isaac? He says, are you Hanrahan? She says, yes, shakes hands. And Isaac throws grenades into the truck of the Fedra soldiers after pulling out the one kind of greener one that asked why they were called voters. And then later we see that same soldier 11 years later just seeming so jaded, and talking about how the Seraphites, the Scars, are fucking animals. And Hanrahan is a new character to the show, and it looks like we're going to be seeing her more in the following episode based on the preview for episode 5. So I'll be curious to see what that character looks like. And, well, we know what she looks like, but what story they're telling with that character, if it's going to be a current character or not. Part of me wondered if, well, I'll say this for a spoilers thing, a prediction, if you will, but I'll be interested to see what's going on with this character a little more. But then we jump to 11 years later, and it's Ellie and Dina in Seattle. they're making their way, they're exploring, they're rummaging through a building, reminiscent if you played the games. A lot of your time spent rummaging through drawers and files, trying to find bandage materials or bottles or tape, just anything you can do to forage and get things going in this new kind of apocalypse, this wasteland. Also, apologies, my allergies are kicking my ass this week, so I have tea. But we are now in the apocalypse. We're with Dina and Ellie, and there's a few main things that we get here. We get a scene where Dina and Ellie are holed up in a music store to get off the street, and Ellie plays "Take on Me" for Dina, which is straight out of the game. Great moment in the game, and there's even a shot at the end of the scene where Ellie sets the guitar down, leaning against the amp. And if you play the game, once you get to that point, that's like a loading screen on the game when you fire it up. And so I thought that was a really cool nod to it as well. And just getting this moment of Ellie and Dina sitting there, just kind of a few things are called out. One, back in season 1 of the show, Joel had told Ellie maybe he'd teach her to play the guitar if she was interested in that. And she says, yeah. And then here we have that Ellie tells Dina that, yeah, Joel had taught her to play the guitar, and she's playing it pretty damn good and sounded good playing as well. So I didn't know Bella Ramsey could sing, but they did a really good job in this role. And there are moments, and I'll get to it towards the end of the episode a little bit. Bella Ramsey does such a good job portraying Ellie, and I believe it's how the showrunners want Ellie to be portrayed, but it is also very different to game Ellie, especially in this season. So I've made far too many notes for this, so I'm trying to keep it a little bit concise. But we jump back and forth from Ellie and Dina to then we go to Jeffrey Wright's Isaac giving a speech, firing up a burner and giving a speech about these pans, these Movial cookware, and how they're the best. Copper takes them to clean. He always wanted them, was going to save up. Didn't think he'd ever be able to afford them because he got pretty good at cooking, but they're always something he wanted. And just kind of reflecting on how just pandemic, the bit of the end of the world, changes that things a little bit because now he's got his full set. In Pan, we see that he is basically interrogating a Seraphite who we were introduced to in last episode. They've got scars on the side, seem like religious fanatics. And he's naked on the floor, and we get a nice male full frontal shot that HBO is so fond of doing lately, but just kind of encapsulating the vulnerability that he's in, that prisoner is in, who's been beaten, and still just very resolute and strong in his faith, talking about that their prophet and reciting that kind of rhetoric and saying that she'll provide, that she's there for them, and just keeping on reciting these things. And Isaac just calling them scars, and the prisoner correcting him and saying that they're Seraphites. Scar is kind of the slur is not the right word, but just trying to be a demeaning nickname that they're calling them because of the scars on their cheeks that they do as a sign of their faith. And Isaac, and they've just clued that in as like an insult and start calling them scars. And he's correcting them and going back and forth with Isaac. And they're talking about, well, you killed kids. And I'm like, well, your kids killed our people too. And they're saying, well, it's because you broke the truce. And no, it's because you broke the truth. And I was like, we're not going to go back and forth on all of this. And you see that there's these two sides. And so far we've just been seeing the Seraphites as more peaceful and kind of the target. But Isaac mentions that like your children are killing our people and you train them that way. You raise them that way. But ultimately we're going to win. And there's this moment where the prisoner tells Isaac, they're like, every day one of your wolves converts to our side. They see her light. They go through the steps to become one of us and pledge their faith. Every day, one of yours converts to our way. There has never been one of us that has converted to your way. And that kind of sets Isaac off a little bit. And he ends up shooting the prisoner, just enraged the prisoners. Isaac says he's going to burn every bit of his body because he's burning him with the nice cookware that he has. And Isaac turns around and sees there's his other hand held out for him to burn. And it just sets him off, and he shoots him because he won't give up where they're going to attack next. And you see that kind of lack of humanity that you can tell Isaac has kind of become a little bit about what he was shaming and so fed up with Phaedra for becoming. And now he's gotten a little bit of that himself because he's just seen this brutality of war. And in the after episode scene, when Craig Mazin, something he said that kind of stood out to me was that Isaac has the same issue that everyone has. They're either infected with cordyceps or tribalism, and that it's us versus them mentality. Everyone in this world falls way to one or the other. And the tribalism becomes a lot more dangerous in this world, and kind of that story where the people are the most dangerous aspect of all of this. There's a big chunk of the game that's cut out that when Ellie and Dina first get there, where they take out a character, Jordan, who is present with the original move towards Jackson and murder of Joel, and Jordan's actually the one that Ellie slices his face, not Manny, like in the show. Jordan does not exist in the show. And so there's a scene where Ellie gets kidnapped. Ellie and Dina end up taking out some wolves, their first interaction with them, and they kill Jordan, and they get pointed towards the news station, which is where the show decides to pick up the first real Ellie and Dina interaction with the wolves. And in the news station, we get to see the first kind of glimpse of the Seraphites' brutality as well, as we see a ton of WLF soldiers strung up and just sliced open and painted on the wall in blood to feel her love. What they say about their prophet. And so that's kind of the first sign that we've seen that both of these sides are just brutal in what they're capable of. And then we get a scene in the transit tunnels that is pulled kind of from the games of just Ellie and Dina having to hide out and the WLF being there as well, and then all these infected. The scale of what takes place in the show far exceeds that's in the game. The numbers and the genuine terror and kind of claustrophobic nature of Ellie and Dina running through this train cars and the infected just breaking windows. And Bella Ramsey, they did a fantastic job in this with just the terror in their face. And they even said in the after episode interview that no, it's not real, but it feels real. And that's one thing. Bella does a great job, just that terror and that dread and that fear whenever there are a ton of infected. They do a great job portraying that on their face and how they're acting. And Isabella Merced did a fantastic job too as Dina in this scene, just the kind of panic and everything going on. Another big departure from the game in the show is how Ellie reveals to Dina that she is immune. In the game, it does also happen in the transit tunnels, but it's because in the game, there are these spores that exist. And basically, anytime you're around somewhere that there's infected, there are spores of the infection in the air, and so you're wearing gas masks. In season 1, they discuss why they eliminated that. It doesn't make sense to throw gas masks on your leading characters through the whole time and have them behind masks. It makes it a pain in the ass for doing audio, and you're missing that visual element as well. They eliminated it. Fine. In the games, though, Ellie and Dina are in the transit tunnels, and Ellie fights an infected, and her mask gets cracked. And so Dina is going to shoot her because she's worried that she is infected there, because she's breathing in these spores. Because that's what happens. You breathe in the spores, you get infected too. So there's multiple ways of getting infected, not just a bite, but also those spores, which the preview for next week's episode looks like we're going to be getting the introduction of spores to the TV universe. So in this, though, Ellie and Dina are trying to make their escape. They're running through the train station. They're stuck in the little turnstile gates, and an infected comes up. Dina's behind, and Ellie, in a moment of just kind of panic and needing to protect Dina, reaches her arm in there for the infected to bite her arm instead of Dina. And then they kill the infected, get them through, and Dina has this moment of realization that she's going to have to kill Ellie because she was bit, and she doesn't know Ellie's immune yet. And they go to the theater. Lots of stuff happens at the theater in the game, so we're introduced to that location early in the series. And so Dina and Ellie make their way to the theater. Dina pulls her gun on Ellie, is going to take her out. And Ellie this is another scene that I thought was expanded on in a really well done way in the show. Is just the panic of Ellie just realizing what Dina's thinking, and Dina's just fear of having to kill Ellie, and Ellie trying to convince her of this thing that sounds so ridiculous because no one is immune. And so she knows how crazy that sounds, and all it takes is for Dina to pull the trigger in 1 second to feel like she has to hurry and get it over with, and then Ellie's dead and wasted. And I thought that was done really well, and the dialogue, and Bella did a great job portraying Ellie in this scene and finally convincing Dina, let me go lay down in the chair, bandage it up, you'll see when I wake up that it's still me. And then we have wake up, she sees she's fine, Ellie convinces her of it, Dina tells Ellie that she's pregnant. Which at the beginning, there's some hints to as they're rummaging. Dina finds something, we don't see what it is, and she says she's going to pee, and then she'll be out and join Ellie. And I mentioned it in, I think, my review of the first episode. I said, yeah, it looks like we're probably not going to get the Dina pregnant plot line. Second episode, I said, oh, now we have... No, I think first and second episode, I'm like, and they're not going to do Dina pregnant thing in this. It doesn't make sense. They're not going to throw it in. It's going to be too many things going on. Last week, I'm like, well, we had Dina puking in the woods. Guess we're getting that. We'll see. And then now it's confirmed Dina is pregnant. But another departure from the game, Ellie's reaction to Dina being pregnant, far different. This, Dina tells her she's pregnant, kisses her, they get it on for the first time. First time they've been intimate with each other in the TV version of this show. In the games version, I think I mentioned it last week or 2 weeks ago, that Ellie and Dina get it on when they're hiding out in Eugene's kind of bunker place during the storm, when Joel's out being murdered. And so this is the first time that they've kind of been intimate together in the show and have that minute of bonding. And Ellie asks Dina why, and Dina confesses. She's like, I had that moment where I thought I was losing you, and I was thinking all these things that I'd built in my head of us having a family and everything, that it probably wasn't going to happen. And Ellie has a moment where she's like, so we're having a baby. Well, us and Jesse are having a baby, technically, and says, I'm going to be a dad. And just kind of has just this excitement and giddiness here, which is where Ellie in the TV universe is so different from Ellie in the game universe. Ellie in the game comes across a lot more jaded, doesn't really joke around, doesn't really have too much fun because of everything she's seen and she's been through and her experiences. I called it out in the early episode reviews of this, especially episode 1. Ellie's a lot more joking, just having fun with it, not taking things as seriously, seems a lot more immature, if that makes sense. than Ellie in the games. Ellie in the games seems very mature, well beyond her years, which this Ellie's still seen some shit, but she still seems like, oh, I'm a 19-year-old kid. And so Ellie's reaction to Dina being pregnant in the games is a lot more kind of pissed off and pulls her back in further and causes her to kind of shut down and withdraw a little bit more, because she sees that as a sign that Dina's going to want to be with Jesse more, and it's one more complication, and she's more pissed at Dina. And Dina found out way earlier in the game. Dina had found out when they were traveling to Seattle before they even got there, in the games, and Ellie's just mad at her and kind of blows up on her about it being like one more burden, and now she has to worry about that when they were there for Abby. And this Ellie is a lot more supportive and there for her and excited about the opportunities. Another big departure is at the end of the episode. They hear on the radio that the WLF, the Seraphites, have broken through, or the Scars, how they say it, broken through the FOB. They're falling back to Lake Hill. Tell Nora she better be ready. So that causes them to perk up their ears, because they know Nora was one of the ones in Jackson that took Joel out. And they go and they look out over the city. They pinpoint where Lake Hill is, and they decide, kind of have a discussion of if Dina's going to go with Ellie or not. And Dina holds out her hand, holds Ellie's hand, and says, together. In the game, Dina and Ellie are more split up. Dina's back home at the theater, on the radio, kind of monitoring activity and reporting back to her. This, it looks like we're going to get them going out together, and figuring out what's going on and tracking people down a little bit more. So that kind of does it for the recap of this episode. I do want to get into some potential spoilers and predictions from the game. So jump in the time codes ahead if you don't want to be spoiled. One thing I wonder is if Hanrahan, this character we're introduced to, is going to become the Seraphite's prophet. Because she's someone who kind of spoke of revolution and is talked about through things you learn in the game, that she was just a person. She was just able to inspire them and end up teaching and preaching for change and peace. And so I wonder if we're going to see that come, now that this is an actress that's a little bit more recognized, and see what they do with that role. I don't know. It'll be interesting. The other thing, and there's a big spoiler for later on in the game, so definitely if you haven't played it, skip ahead. That I'll be interested to see if they have, because part of the reason I thought they were maybe going to leave out Dina's pregnancy is because it's a parallel to Mel's pregnancy, because Mel and Owen are together. I didn't get the vibes that Mel and Owen were together when their characters interacted and killed Joel and Jackson. So having Mel and Owen be a couple, and Mel being pregnant when Ellie kills her in the TV show, seems like, I don't know. It seems like it's too many things are going to have to line up and happen for that to be the case. But that's one of the most important parts about Dina being pregnant. There's a couple key things with it. Is one, it shows Ellie's just drive for revenge later on, because she can't settle down with Dina and be happy with her and the baby. It almost drives Abby more for vengeance, because Ellie killed her pregnant friend, and then now she has Ellie's pregnant friend in her hands, and it's more like an eye for an eye, and kind of raises the stakes there, and that parallel. I don't know. I think, Dina being pregnant, it does still serve some plot points, but we'll see what ends up happening and where they end up going with it. But those are the only two big spoilers that I wanted to kind of call out, or predictions. And spoilers now. All right. So just kind of my final thoughts. I think this was one of the better episodes of the season. This has been a really strong season so far. Last week's episode was the only one that kind of fell a little bit flat for me, but I think it was needed because it showed that kind of grieving process and kind of set up what was to come. I love this episode. I'm really excited for next week. I appreciate the scale that we're getting with the series. So like in the game, the amount of infected in the transit tunnels is significantly less than we see in this. This just added to the dread, the terror, and up the stakes to a whole other level. The scene in the news station with all the wolves hanging up was just a visual, like, terrifying thing to look at, and kind of makes you see how the people are the real villains, just like a lot of these post-apocalyptic shows do, like The Walking Dead and everything like that, that people are the real, just fucked up ones. You have all the other stuff, the infection, the zombies, whatever it may be, that they can't control themselves, but the people end up just digging in and finding sometimes the worst parts of themselves. Some people find the best parts of themselves, some find the worst. Great episode overall. Excited to see what's to come. I think we're about the halfway mark of the season now. They're doing 8 episodes this season, so we'll see, but excited for what's to come. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment. Let us know your favorite parts of the episode in the comments below. Don't be dicks with the spoilers. Let other people enjoy it. Tune in. Regular episodes of the podcast drop every Wednesday at 6 a.m. Central Time. YouTube, anywhere you listen to podcasts, musicals, movies. We talk about it all. And tune in next Sunday or Monday morning for another recap of The Last of Us. And as always, don't forget to go down once more. Later.